I survived 200 days in hardcore RLCraft. In these 200 days, the goals are simple. First, beat Rahovart, the Lord of the Underworld. Then beat Asmodeus, the Mastermind. Last of all, I need to beat Amalgalich, the Soul Devourer. Day 101, I updated the shaders, which made some blocks look weird. Other than that, I got straight to work. I started swapping some baubles around, and then with the right setup, I hopped on my rock to explore. I ended up in a dragon's nest and looked through every chest for mimics. Since I had no luck with that, I jumped down to destroy this battle tower. At this point, with regular gear, I was basically invincible to regular mobs. But against some of the bosses and parasites, I would still die immediately. Running through this battle tower, I got up to level 56 and hopped into a cave that connected to it. This shader also had like weird night vision effects, so it still looked kind of dark in here. Anyway, I cleared out some monster boxes and started looking for tier 5 dragon nests as well. Then with the 57 levels I had, I put it on the final iron skin level. I ended up recalling back towards a waystone next to the dragon's nest, and as I went over to the village next to it, I noticed that this shader kind of bugged out on glass. So this texture for the glass was going to be kind of annoying. I started advancing the trades of this librarian because these guys were going to be essential to beating the boss. This guy didn't have anything too good, so I came back home to prepare for a wither fight. The next morning, I jumped down into a cave to summon a wither and managed to take this guy out super easily. Also in the last video, someone in the comments said that you could pick up waystones, so I tried to, and I even picked up all these mining perks, but it just wasn't happening. Once I got back home, I used a bunch of these glowing ingots on the dragon's eye, but I didn't get undying on it, so I had to use more blaze rods to craft even more glowing ingots. This time I used the other reforger as well to get extra effects on the baubles. This one ended up taking a lot of levels. The second go around, I still didn't get anything good on the eye. With that done though, I hopped into the nether and got a weird spawn which dropped me into the lava. Once I made it out, I got attacked by a few mobs, but these guys were really easy to take care of. I hopped on my rock and fought this Lycanite's dragon. Now I was super lucky that this guy moves slowly, so I actually was able to take it out pretty easily. It didn't drop anything good, but after that I focused on the fortress to get a bunch of blaze rods. While exploring one of the rooms, I ended up getting a cracked black dragon scale, which was huge for me. I also took a quick detour to grab some bone mushroom spores and went right back to farming rods. Once I picked up a stack, I was done with the nether, and as soon as I got back home, I made the black dragon scale and combined it with the bazaar and then swapped it with the poison stone I was using. For the blaze rods, I was able to make a bunch more glowing ingots and got undying on the dragon's eye. I also had to start disintegrating a lot of old baubles to reforge the new stuff. From here, I went off to find more villages and ended up in a cool structure. Here I grabbed a few grapes and a lot of food from the basement. In the main bedroom, I even picked up an XP tome and finally ended up in another battle tower. Once again, I steamrolled through this place and only stopped to bring the second to last chest down. With all the loot taken, I wiped out the golem and grabbed whatever I could from the top as well. Since I had tons of levels now, I filled up a tome and found a village as it was turning into day. I had to get rid of the dragon first though, and then I activated the waystone as well. Day 104 to day 105, I put a ton of loot away and even crafted an extra XP tome. Once I put all my levels into it, I smelt most of the diamond gear I had collected as well. Now that my backpack was empty, I could actually explore that one village properly. I leveled up a librarian who actually had a subject PE book, and since I was going to be using wine, I think this thing wasn't even important. I blocked the guy off regardless just in case, and found another librarian whose trades weren't even good at all. I did manage to get an absolute ton of wheat, so I was able to stock up on food. From there, I was back on my rock and tore through another battle tower. Inside of the chest, I was looking for a few more baubles which would be needed to make an Ankh charm. I took out a blighted mob here and demolished a golem. Now this guy or one of the other mobs dropped the greatest book ever. This advanced power 5 book changed everything. I grabbed all the loot left in the tower and kept moving on. I ended up taking a dragon down from the ground since my rock died, and as I was looting the chest, a mimic spawned. This time I didn't get that lucky. I really wanted an antidote vessel or a feral claw. Anyway, once my rock respawned, I found a village where I crafted another XP tome to store my levels into. Plus, there was an infinity trade and an empowered defense 2 trade on one librarian. Since I felt pretty invincible, I decided to go on headfirst into this fire dragon and took the guy out, even though I couldn't see anything. There was no luck with any more mimics, so I moved on to this one doom-like dungeon. In here, I fought a blighted spider and these zotars. There weren't a lot of mobs spawning just yet, so I was having a pretty easy time going around looting the chests. I actually ended up making one more XP tome to store even more levels. I don't think this mattered in hardcore, but I was just so used to it. This doom-like though was really easy, and I breezed through each room, which got me up to level 56 before I recalled out of there. As the night was ending, I managed to find another village and took out the dragon next to this place as well. So at this point, I had enough XP tomes to fill up like a whole crate, and I also had tons of chupacabra meat. Turns out I had to craft even more chests to sort a lot of the new stuff I had. With all the housekeeping done, I started working on an endgame bow. I chose a fire dragon bow and started getting the books ready to enchant this beast. I already had a ton of the stuff I needed to max this thing out, but some of the other books were pretty rare, so I started rolling some enchants. With that in mind, I decided to keep exploring and hoping to find some good librarians along the way. At night, I was around these cold biomes, and for the Ankh charms, I would need to take out a ton of strays and husks. I quickly cleared out a structure which had some diamond blocks and fought a bunch of strays with my looting sword till the morning. I got nothing good, but I did end up finding a 4 tower, which I marked down, and then a little villager area past that. The librarian here sucked, but I did manage to get to the cellar and grab a ton of books plus another XP tome from the shelves. There were some really good books on the top floor as well. Eventually, I was sick of the cold biomes, so at night I went to clear out some husks and hopefully get a bauble from them. I rode around to my Zotar and started clearing out some of the desert structures while I was there. The next morning, I took out a few dragons and found myself inside of a jungle battle tower. I put 29 levels into archery and took out a blighted mob right after. Then I made an extra copy of my atlas and made sure to grab every bauble in the chest to disintegrate later. Since I had even more levels, I put those into arrow speed and brought these chests from the top floor down to a safe area. With the best stuff looted, I took out the golem and cleared out the final chest before jumping down. Before this night ended, I actually ended up taking out a fire dragon who was sleeping and ended up in front of another 4 tower. Day 109 to day 110, I was actually looking forward to clearing out a 4 tower since I could get tons of emeralds and enchanted books. Some of the books were really great here, which ended up filling most of the crates that I had. I also picked up some enchanted golden apples and fought off tons of vindicators. Also, since I was now resistant to the wither effect, these wither skeletons were nothing to me. With the bottom floor cleared, I made my way up to the 2nd floor library and handled all the mobs in there as well. These chests had even more enchanted books, and as I was putting all the stuff away, a Lycanites mob event started. This one was actually going to be really hard, so I had to be very careful. I got some mending books in the room across and saw these Vespids who were really strong. I had to recall out of there. This gave me a chance to put all the stuff I had collected away. Since I had so much stuff, I needed even more chests, and while doing that, I used some levels on this Broken Heart bauble and got a good modifier on this Reforger. I also used an XP tome and reforged the rest of my baubles as well. With some more hearts, I wanted to go back to that 4 tower and clear it out properly. Along the way though, I got sidetracked. First, I explored a village and then I ended up in front of a Lycanites dungeon. I jumped right into this place and started clearing out the 1st floor. Eventually, I had taken out the first boss, the Gilded Great Worm, and got some very average loot. Since I was trying to go as fast as possible, I ended up falling into a level 5 fire dragon's nest. This is why I had so many enchanted golden apples stocked up. I ate one and started slashing away at the dragon. I wasn't taking a lot of damage and I managed to hurt the dragon quite a bit. It started to fly out, so I swapped to my crossbow, and since it was such a large target, I got tons of shots off. So I ended up taking down the tier 5 dragon. As soon as my rock resummoned, I harvested the scales from the dragon, and I think I might have missed the egg. Anyway, I went back to clearing out the dungeon, and this crypt executioner guy actually ended up doing a lot of damage to me. I took it out anyway, but it cost a bunch of hearts. Deeper into the dungeon, I fought the guardian dragon once again and got a cockatrice as a reward. There was literally nothing else of value in the rest of these chests. For the rest of these days, my hearts were kind of halved by the bosses, so I had to be really careful clearing out the Vespids in front of this 4 tower. I was very lucky that I had a good crossbow, but even with that, these guys were still scary. With the bulk of them gone, I looted one of the open towers and got some pretty good loot from there. Since I'd taken out so many Vespids, I actually unlocked Knowledge rank 2. From there, I made my way up these towers to the better chests. I took out some blighted mobs, looted the regular chests, and leveled up quite a bit. Sadly though, this specific tower sucked and the loot was average at best. After wiping out hundreds of witches and more blighted mobs, I ended up sleeping to get a lot of my hearts back. From there, I finally got some really good loot in one of the towers. This vitamins bauble was clutch, since now I didn't have to fight an elder guardian. I got 2 more rare potion rings as well. One was for reach and the other one was a true shot. That was my cue to leave, and as I was out, I found another librarian randomly who had like a reinforced sharpness book. I chose to advance this guy really quickly, but there was nothing too good. I did, however, put 37 levels into arrow speed. From there, a blood moon rose, and I tried to find a desert as quickly as possible. My goal that whole night was to fight a ton of husks to get the forbidden fruit bauble. There were so many mobs spawning at this point, my game was lagging. It took a whole night of farming and beating these champions, but I did get some really good loot. I ended up getting an advanced mending book from a champion, and of course, more importantly, the forbidden fruit bauble. I was now like 1 item short. Well, 2 to be exact, but those 2 can be combined. I came back home and made a separate chest for the Ankh charm items. Then I cleared up my main chest by turning a lot of items into blocks. With that done, I used a bunch of XP tomes and enchanted some more books. I got a lifesteal 2-on-1, which made it all worth it. Finally, it was also time to max this bow out. I did the 1, 2, 4, 8 method of enchanting, which was basically like starting with the most expensive and then combining the next 2 most expensive and then combining the next 4 together and so on. I messed up a little bit by not combining the last 2 books together, but I did manage to get the perfect bow. I also had to put a bunch more levels into agility, but now I was set. Oh yeah, and I used like my only advanced mending book on this bow. To help with the bow damage, I reforged and equipped this potion of true shot. To test this bow out, I flew around looking for some structures. I cleared out a bunch of spawners in 1 broken battle tower and then was able to take out a fire dragon very easily. This bow loaded so quickly I could just spam shots. The next dragon was taken out in like 5 or 6 shots, so I was very proud of this bow. I ended the night by taking on a proper battle tower where I fought some blighted and infernal mobs, picked up an enchanted book, and tried my best at grabbing the loot on the top floor. And I put like 31 more levels into my archery. Across this tower, I entered another battle tower, and this one went underground. Fighting this champion mob also gave me a really decent book, and getting deeper into this tower, I actually got some really good stuff. By the time I exited the tower, it was morning, and after some more traveling, I finally ended up in another village. I leveled up this librarian in here, and it ended up giving me an Unbreaking 3 and Multi-Shot 4 trade, which was pretty good. With that guy marked down, I demolished another dragon, and as I went to loot some chests, I got blessed with another mimic. Since I was pretty unlucky, I got this thing called a drinking hat. Anyway, I was also in the plains biome, so I picked up some Orosaur meat and cleared out another dragon. At this point, I stopped harvesting scales and bones. I actually ended up getting a really good amount of raw Orosaur meat and lamb chops from this Cyclops cave. Before this day ended, I was in 2 villages, and the latter one actually had a library. These buildings are pretty clutch because of the multiple librarians, and there's like 3 chests all filled with books. I opened the main chest while leveling up the librarian, and sadly the trades suck, but I did manage to get some really good books from the chest. The librarian on the floor below had an advanced power 5 trade. I marked that down and advanced this librarian, but the rest of its trades sucked. Once again, I took out another dragon and fought another battle tower. Again, this battle tower actually had even more good items, which filled up my backpack fully. From there, I cleared out another village's dragon and used that waystone to come back home. Day 118 to day 119, since I had so many more levels, I had to make even more XP tomes while I was putting all the items away. I also grabbed some spectral silk, which actually gave me a good quality on the broken heart bauble. I cooked up all the lamb I had collected and then wanted to start working on an end game melee weapon as well. I chose the ice dragon bone nunchucks to be the weapon. I put that in a barrel and started placing down some of the books that would be good on the weapon. One was Lifesteal 2, another was Viper 5, and then Ash Destroyer 5 as well. I still didn't have the main enchants though, and those ones were like Supreme Sharpness 5 and Piercing Capability. I had to back out and find more structures for those. I started from the last village I was at, and here I leveled up a librarian who had a Clear Skies favor, and apparently that one was really good. From there, I looted another battle tower, which meant I officially had more than a stack of golden apples. Across the pond was another dragon's nest, and with that guy gone, I actually fought one more mimic. Of course though, I got something that I really didn't need, like this panic necklace. As I entered a desert, I found a Lycanite's dungeon, which I prayed would give me more baubles. These purple structures actually have a lot of very annoying mobs that give you the decay effect. Still, I only got the same few baubles I've always had. Unnatural Blocking 2 book was actually really good though. One of the bosses was some giant rat named Experiment 69R. This guy was no match for my bow. Some of the other mobs were quite a hassle though. They took a few of my hearts. As I got deeper into this dungeon, I fought another boss called the Anarchical Hound. I wasn't really comfortable melee fighting this guy, so I used my bow from a distance. I picked up 2 beast soul stones from this structure once I defeated the hound and put 37 more levels into archery. At this point, there was one boss left and it was named Asaku. I cleared out the room in front of this giant and took a few shots at the boss. As long as I stood behind the doorway though, I took out this boss without any challenge. But a blighted void trite attacked me, and this thing was even more of a challenge than the boss. With all the bosses in the dungeon cleared out, I looted the final chest, and for some reason these Lycanites dungeon always give me garbage, so I just made sure to grab anything that looked like it could be dismantled into silt. Once this place was empty, I hopped out on my rock and made my way towards a nearby village to end the day off. Inside of this village, I got some really good stuff. First, I leveled up this random librarian in a house, and then I made my way into the library where I picked up more enchanted books. The librarian at the front desk sucked, but I did get a lot of really good books, so it didn't matter. Moving on from the village, I found a desert battle tower and wanted to get my hearts back, so I slept. Turns out I was also in front of a pretty large desert structure as well. This battle tower was actually super easy, and I made one more XP tome to put some levels into. I picked up some really good stuff, took out the golem, and got back up to level 50. With that battle tower done, I marked down the desert structure and another battle tower. Then I came home. I filled up most of the empty XP tomes I had lying around, and then set aside a few more books that I would have to put on the nunchucks. Since my backpack was cleared, I went over to take on the other battle tower. I ended up getting a ton of levels very quickly and started putting levels into the crafting perks. I increased the cooking efficiency, harvesting efficiency, and also got green thumb with the levels. Day 124, with all that done, I wanted to take on this huge desert structure. Now this place is jam-packed with gold blocks. Before entering the main gate, I actually grabbed as much of those blocks as I could from the outside. In total, I ended up with 30 before even getting into the main room. Once I did get into one of those rooms, I basically wanted to farm these magma cubes. Since these guys split, there happened to be a ton of infernal mobs spawning, and that was really awesome. I took out a bunch of these guys and got some really good loot. For fun, I actually spammed the bow as well, and that basically just cleaned house. I picked up a few enchanted books for some of these guys, and made it to the wall, which had a bunch of gold and emerald blocks. I ended up with 2 whole stacks of gold blocks and a bunch of emeralds from one room. The other room was basically the same thing. I cleared out the spawners and put around 40 levels into smelting and cooking skills. Once I got rid of the cinders, I mined the blocks on the wall again and ended up with almost 4 stacks of gold blocks. From there, I kept exploring the surrounding areas and noticed some charred blocks. I broke through it and fell into a tier 5 dragon's nest. This is my second one at this point. This time I rapid fired my bow, which worked way better than I could imagine. From this dragon, I finally got a fire dragon egg, and that was my cue to basically recall home, where I crafted a ton more enchanted golden apples. Day 125 to day 126, with some of these new farming skills, it was time for me to start producing the wines. I chopped down a tree and lit up this area to the left of my house. I also put a bunch of levels into farming as well. After a little bit, I had set up a good place for grapes to grow. Then I went to fly around to get some greenhouse glass and wild berries. I picked up some bushes and made my way towards this huge bone structure just in case I would ever need bone meal. I had around a stack and a half of bone blocks, and I even tried bone mealing the grapes, but it just wasn't working. I had to get my farming up to level 12, and apparently bone meal doesn't work for both of these fruits. Once morning started, I had a row of wildberry bushes and made a crushing tub. I set that and a double chest up, but I was still 6 levels shy of using the brewing barrel. While everything was growing, I used my XP tomes to get farming 18, and with that I placed down 2 brewing barrels to finally start wine production. I started off with grapes for regular wine, and this was way more important in my opinion. I only put 1 glass bottle in and hoped to get some high rated wine. The entire brewing process took a pretty long time, so I made another diamond pickaxe and put silk touch on it. I nabbed up some greenhouse glass and put that a few layers above the grapes. Before the morning started, I actually ended up getting the wildberry wine production started as well. So I actually messed up a little bit by putting another bucket of grape juice into the barrel as it almost finished, and that reset the brewing, so I now had to wait even longer. While waiting though, I went over to this giant village to grab 2 mending books. The first one I put on my flame dragonbone sword, since the nunchucks would take a good amount of time to be fully set up. With that done, 1 bottle of wine was finally done, and it was rated at 0.73 quality, which was a pretty good start. I used that wine as a base and started working my way up from there. The wildberry one though was really bad. It came in at like 0.34 quality. I drank it to see what the effect was, and I ended up with like 3 minutes of nausea. This effect lasted all night, so with more of those wine brewing, I went out in a direction I hadn't gone yet, just to kill some time. After some exploring, I found another Lycanites dungeon in a snowy biome. Now this one had some really strong Lycanites mobs. The good thing was that my sword was finally getting repaired. I got some okay loot and almost got in trouble in one of the rooms since I was taking a lot of damage. With that taken care of, I took out the first boss, Precious, then made my way down. I used some of these XP tomes and rapid fired into the Chaos Serpent, who dropped a really good soul stone. From some of the chests and champions, I picked up good enchanted books as well. Before fighting the final boss, I got my gathering skill up to level 18, and then this Nightshade boss was actually tough since it could get out of its arena. Anyway, with that guy taken care of, I looted the final few rooms, and I noticed some charred blocks next to the dungeon. Of course, I broke through and into the dragon's nest. Here I ate an enchanted golden apple, and I think the gapple was kind of an overkill since this guy didn't put up much of a fight at all. I picked up my second fire dragon egg and came home to put a bunch of items away. Day 128 to day 130, I hopped back on my rock and went right back towards the direction of the last Lycanite's dungeon I was at. I was out in these unexplored areas all day and even took out a few dragons at night. I had found 2 villages and a little camp, but those places didn't have any good librarians. That basically took the whole night, and in the morning I was back on top of a battle tower. I started making my way down and picked up some enchanted books from the chests. The loot here was pretty typical, but as I hopped out of the tower, I ended up in another little camp. Now this place had 2 librarians. I used a lot of books and emeralds to level these folks up, but they had some pretty bad trades. That night I found a really cool village and activated the Waystone, and this place happened to be right next to another battle tower. I got a ton of levels moving up this structure and put 41 levels into melee damage. After looting the second highest chest, I actually tried to take out the golem using my bow and flying mount. This worked pretty well, and the top chest actually had a nether star in there. Basically right behind this structure was another battle tower, and these underground ones are my favorite since the whole tower doesn't collapse. I blazed through this and went over to the village on the coast nearby. One of the villagers had an inner berserk book, which would be great for late game armor. I bought a book and marked this place down, and then managed to fight like 4 dragons just getting away from this area. Before the night ended, I found an advanced efficiency trade and then came home to grab a boatload of emeralds. With the advanced efficiency villager, I wanted to get a better pickaxe, so I made another dragonbone pickaxe and started putting these books on it. I ended up with an advanced efficiency 4, fortune 3, unbreaking 3, mending pickaxe. I also enchanted some book and got advanced looting, plus my regular wine was like actually increasing quality really well. I filled those brewing barrels up once again, and while that was working, I got masterful quality on the pickaxe. I stocked up on even more emeralds and used 24 levels on the farming skills. As soon as morning hit, I was back at the last village I explored and wanted to see if there were any more good librarians. I also ended up buying tons of advanced efficiency books to advance this guy's trades. Another librarian sold Atomic Deconstructor, which was huge, so I made sure to secure this guy up. Once I got back home, I combined up all those advanced efficiency books and got it up to level 5. Then in the meantime, my regular wine was doing great, but I was getting some really bad rolls on the wildberry wine. Once again, I was back exploring after the housekeep, and I fought like my 200th dragon at this point. Day 133 to day 135, a lot of things happened. I started off by taking out 3 dragons in the morning, then I made my way inside of a library. The first thing I did here was advance the librarian at the front desk to see if I could get anything good. This guy ended up offering nothing good, so I went to grab all the books from the main chest on the 2nd floor. Here I actually picked up a ton of useful stuff, and in one of the other houses I got another Atomic Deconstructor trade. Aside from that, there was nothing good, so I moved on to another village by nighttime. The first librarian in this village scammed me, so I moved on and found a much better structure. And this place had some really good enchanted books in some of the chests too. The morning after, I cleared out another battle tower and ended up in another library structure. Once again, the main chest had some really good enchanted books. As I moved along, I filled up most of my crates and almost my whole backpack with a bunch of enchanted books. Then I got super lucky as I ended up in one of those giant village structures. The first thing I did here was take up all the gold blocks from the bell tower, and then I checked out as many of the librarians in this area as possible. I did a quick look to see what their first level trades were. I had to come back home though to grab most of my emeralds since it was gonna take a while to level these guys up. Back at the giant village, I ended up using a lot of my emeralds to advance trades, and some of the books were really good, like this higher level Atomic Deconstructor. One of these guys also had education, but the best villager here was the subject English one. I grabbed all the lapis and other junk from the main tower of this village and then became the luckiest person ever. One of these chests had a Supreme Sharpness 4 book. It wasn't fully maxed out, but it was more than good enough for me. Day 136 to day 137, at this point I was only a few books shy of having a pretty good nunchuck. Before that though, I maxed out my pickaxe and combined a few more books together. Since there were so many enchants that I needed to put on, I made a separate chest and ordered the books from most expensive to least. I also picked up this subject English book and started getting close to 0.8 quality wine. After one last round of combining books together, I had enough for a pretty stacked nunchuck. I just had to be careful though, since it would be impossible to place new enchants if I messed up. I only had one upgraded potentials book, which I didn't plan on using just yet. The next day, I chopped down all the bookshelves I had and took out a blighted spider. With that done, I went over to the giant village once more and started buying a ton of these Adept 1 books. This one librarian also had Curse of Possession, which would be great on melee weapons. I ended up fully running out of emeralds, so I had to start grabbing all the wool from the buildings. With the wool, I could sell them for emeralds or turn it into string and sell that instead. I was still shy a few emeralds to get more adept books, so I farmed some of those Bobecos since I still needed battle burritos for later. I also picked up tons of Arasaur meat and then hopped down into this roguelike dungeon. I fought some weird mobs, but eventually decided to teleport back out of here. So I didn't have any more advanced mending books left, which meant for the nunchucks I would just have to use regular mending. Still, I was missing a few more adept books that I really wanted, so to get more emeralds I started trading my gold. Finally, I got what I needed and was ready to enchant this absolute behemoth. I started off by gathering all the levels I had stored up, but I had no clue just what was waiting for me. Just like last time, it was the same method, the 1-2-4-8 method. I started off with the most expensive one, which was Supreme Sharpness, and since I didn't have the Piercing Capabilities rune, I moved on to other enchants. Also, my advanced looting book had other enchants, so I couldn't really do this method perfectly. This basically drained my levels, and as I was planning on combining more books, a Lycanites mob event started. So for these, I try and run away as far from my house as possible, since some events can destroy all your stuff. I got on my rock and fired at as many of these mobs as possible. I didn't even know which mobs were there because of the event. Once I took out all those guys, it was morning time, and I decided to reforge the nunchucks and got it to legendary quality. From there, I combined as many books as I could and finally started getting better and better wildberry wine as well. My next goal was to get tons of levels to finish this weapon off. After traveling for a while, I made it to a 4 tower that I had marked down previously. Day 140 to day 143, in all the time I've been playing RLCraft, I don't think I've ever had an advanced looting weapon, so this Vindicator area was like the best place to test it out. First of all, this nunchuck attacks super fast and shred through these mobs. Plus, I started getting so many emeralds. Since there were anvils here, I combined more books together and checked to see how many levels it would take to put on the nunchucks. Things weren't looking too good at all. The first floor also had some really good enchanted books that I snatched up. Then with those spawners cleared, I moved over to the other side that was filled with even more Vindicators. Taking every mob out here took until the morning and actually started lagging my game with all the dropped items. The basement had the most mobs, but they still only took like 1 or 2 hits at most. With that place cleared up, my game ran a lot better and I started moving up the towers. I had tons of levels, tons of emeralds, and fought a lot of very annoying witches. 58 levels ended up being used to put like 4 more enchants on this beast of a weapon. This made things even easier, which allowed me to combine even more books, but now things were getting super expensive and the enchants weren't even fitting on the screen. I had some more trouble with a blighted mob, but I ended up getting on top of one of these towers. I picked up anything that looked good like baubles, enchanted books, and random rare items. From there, I moved on to another tower, which was jam-packed with witches and got splashed by a perplexity potion, which inverted my controls. I picked up all the good stuff on that tower and got out of there. I was eventually in some village where I advanced a librarian, and some of these guys actually had some really decent trades. At this point, once again, my crates and backpack had been filled up with enchanted books, so I came home and decided to use an upgraded potentials book on my nunchucks. This made the next few enchants much cheaper, but they were still like relatively expensive. Day 144, I worked on the wine some more, and while that was brewing, I went back towards the last village I was in and explored from there. I ended up on top of a battle tower and started working my way down. By the time I got down to 3 floors, I had enough levels to combine the last 2 books I had, but not enough to put that on the weapon just yet. I had to fight through the rest of this battle tower though to get the levels. I basically burned through each floor and got down to the tower golem, who happened to be infernal, and even with that, my nunchuck shredded through it. One of the dropped items was an XP tome, which got me up to level 40, and this allowed me to get almost maxed out nunchucks. I was only missing like arc slash, piercing capabilities, and a few more random little enchants. Also, these nunchucks took a lot of durability damage already, so I had to take out some Arasaur to get some levels. Also, while I was there, I took out some Machas since they're also needed for battle burritos. Then I fought a dragon from the ground and found another battle tower. I started from the bottom floor and worked my way up trying to repair my weapon. At this point, I'd already taken down like maybe close to 100 battle towers, and I still didn't get the ring of overclocking that I really needed. Day 145 to day 146, I came back home to craft a potion ring of regeneration and use that instead of the true shot. With that potion ring reforged, I wanted another bauble as well, so I had to make these glowing gems. That allowed me to craft a shield of honor, and after reforging that, I got a decent quality on it. I also ended up using most of my spectral silt on this power glove and didn't get anything good. The next thing I wanted to do was dip a sword in some potions, so I bought a bunch of glass from one of the librarians. With that done, I used a good amount of bone mushroom spores and ender pearls to brew some random teleport potions. I put in a few levels to increase the brewing speed, which was helpful, and then ended up filling up a cauldron. After that, I tipped a regular diamond sword into the potions and had a perfect way to handle tower golems. I kept the shield of honor inside of the backpack now, since I didn't need it just yet. Day 146 to day 148, turns out I never harvested the village's grapes. They were just lying around, so after grabbing all of that, I had like a stack and a half more. I also had a really good amount of wine now, and decided to move on. While searching for more structures, I found what I assumed was a cathedral, and inside this place there were spawners scattered around, and after breaking all of those, I looted the chests. There happened to be tons of these instant health and regen potions. Moving on from there, I made it inside of a battle tower, but this one was underground, so I didn't have to use the random teleport just yet. The chest had some pretty good enchanted books, and I raked in the levels. I kept most of the levels in the tomes and picked up a bunch of baubles, which were very helpful. From there, I took out the tower golem and grabbed the loot from the best chests. I hopped on my rock, activated another waystone, and found that one house structure again. This time I picked up a lot of the greenhouse glass while I was there. I also made sure to grab all the food from the basement, and at that night I ended up leveling up a librarian who had an advanced looting trade. I made sure to buy as many of those books as I could. As if I couldn't get luckier, in this one defiled lands biome, I noticed something very gold. The last time I played RLCraft, I had to farm hundreds of bookworms to get one of these guys. This time I found a golden bookworm by pure luck, and it dropped 5 scales once I killed it. I also noticed this doom-like dungeon underneath the defiled lands biome, and this place was jam-packed with some weird mobs. Since now I should be able to disenchant items, these random pieces of armor in the chest were actually helpful. I spent a good while fighting mobs in this dungeon, and as the defiled lands started taking over the regular blocks, it was getting harder and harder to see. Anyway, I got up to level 58 and decided to move on from there. Finally, I found a battle tower where I used a random teleport, and it worked super well. I looted the top 2 chests without any issues, and at this point my inventory was completely filled up, so I came home. I used the golden scales to make a disenchantment table and leveled up my magic to 24. I used some more spectral silt as well, and then combined all these advanced looting books, but I didn't have enough levels to put them on the nunchucks just yet. Day 149 to day 150, I made a bunch of cold resistance potions since I was still hurt by hypothermia. After that, I changed the GUI to see how stacked my nunchucks were, and they still weren't even maxed out. Anyway, I upgraded the looting on it and had crafted a set of silver armor to start working on an endgame set. I already had tons of good books and disenchanted some of the old items I wasn't gonna use anymore. At the same time, my wine was getting significantly better, so from there I went out to explore once again since I really needed advanced protection on this new set of armor. I ran through another battle tower where I picked up tons of levels and baubles, then I took out a dragon right before it turned into day. With that done, I grabbed a lot of levels from the tomes I had and teleported around to see if any of the villagers had good books for armor. I combined 2 more books together and saw that it was gonna take 72 levels to put on my nunchucks. I ended the day by finally getting above a 0.8 quality wine, and then I made tons of potions as well. Day 151 to day 154 was really hectic. I drank some of the bad wines I had and got rid of the rest. Then, as I was collecting some Arasaur meat, I noticed a gigantic structure. Now, even with a pretty good computer, my game was about to start lagging like crazy. I entered through the main way and noticed that I couldn't break the spawners just yet, so I assumed that they were end crystals somewhere. I fought a few mobs who were pretty easy and entered one of the corners of the structure. Now, this is when things started getting pretty nuts. At first, it was just a few mobs and it looked pretty easy. The chests in here were also stacked, so I knew I was gonna start getting some really good loot. I checked out the basement really quickly, and this is when the game started to lag. I farmed these spawners down here until they broke and picked up tons of emeralds. The moment I started making my way up the stairs in this tower is when things started going crazy. These witches were the absolute worst and started setting the entire place on fire. Usually the actual game lag isn't as bad as the recording, but there was so much going on that the recording was pretty accurate. Anyway, I got some levels and decided to just bolt up to the top and break the crystal over here. The chest up top had some really great loot, plus some of the spawners started spawning champion mobs who also dropped some really good books on top. Well, as this side started burning down, I was on my rock taking out some of the leftover mobs. With the flight, I could easily open up some of the chests, and once again I was surprised with how good the enchanted books in here were. I filled an entire crate up and still had like 10 more chests to open just from this one area. Once I grabbed everything good from this corner, like these Advanced Protection 3 books, I moved on to the other towers. Now this side had less books and more baubles. I actually ended up getting a ring of overclocking from here and needed one more item for the Ankh charm now. For the rest of these days, I was clearing out the other corners and I picked up so much loot, it was actually insane. The basement in here also had some goodies as well. This was by far the best structure I had ever been in RLCraft. Once I came home, I had just enough books to make a really good silver chest plate. I combined the 2 advanced protection books together and then put the strength and vitality on. After finalizing it with unbreaking and mending, this chest plate was going to be perfect for late game. Before the days ended, I also put inner berserk on the chest plate and combined more books together to put on the nunchucks, but I realized it took like 82 whole levels. Day 155 to day 156, I used a bunch of silver ingots to get masterful quality on my chest plate. Then after that, I used an ancient tome to increase the unbreaking level. Once that was done, I set up all the items needed for an Ankh charm and was only missing the shulker heart. To get that, I made my way towards the stronghold. I jumped in the portal, hopped on my rock, and immediately flew in one direction. Eventually, I found an end island and my rock died as I was grabbing my warp scrolls, so I had to wait for that little guy to respawn. From there, I finally found an end city and started taking out as many shulkers as possible. This bauble has like a 20% chance to drop, which was much higher than the others. Things started off slow as I only picked up shulker shells and this pinky meat. Even though I cleared out an entire end city, I still had to move on towards another. This one had a ship, which had an elytra wing, and that was actually pretty clutch. There was also an arc slash sword here, which I snatched up, and that was one of the enchants I still didn't have on my nunchucks just yet. From there, I took out tons of more shulkers and racked up more pinky meat. Still no shulker heart just yet. Next up, I challenged this end battle tower since I was there, and as I teleported this tower golem, my rock died. I made my way up this tower the hard way, and some mobs ended up doing a lot of damage, and Argus almost made me fall into the void, so I warped back home. I wasn't done with the end, so I went back through the portal, and this time I found a much safer battle tower, got rid of the tower golem, and looted the chests. Behind that place was an end city, and in here I finally got the shulker heart. I cleared out one other random structure before coming home, and worked on the wine really quickly as well. More importantly though, I made the ring of free action, and then crafted the Ankh charm. Then I combined the charm with the obsidian shield to make an Ankh shield. I also disenchanted and got an arc slash book, and then combined it with the other enchants that the nunchucks needed, but it was too expensive to put on just yet. Before the night ended, I got healthy quality on the Ankh shield as well. Just for a little bit, I crafted a diamond shield temporarily, and with that done, I collected some ink sacks and a bunch of wool. Since I had some cocoa beans from before, I was able to make this teddy bear bauble. Now this thing makes you immune to regular fear, not the parasite one. Since I couldn't figure out how to reforge this bauble, I decided to stick with a thorn pendant for a little bit, and this thing was dropped by a mimic, which was pretty cool. Day 159 to 60, I jumped into the nether and fought a bunch of blazes and magma cubes. I also put this diamond horse armor on my mount and broke into what looked like a doom-like dungeon inside of this fortress. The chests in here were pretty good, but I only stuck around because I really thought this place was gonna have like a wither spawner. It really wouldn't hurt to farm some nether stars. Sadly, there were none here, so I hopped out in search of more structures. I eventually ended up in a nether lycanite's dungeon. The mobs in here were pretty strong and the chests happened to be fairly good. I fought some blighted mobs in here and cleared out tons of spawners. Then I finally found a boss mob called Prime Lava Soul, who didn't put up much of a fight. I activated the soulstone, it dropped, and started running out of water, so my vision was all messed up. For some reason though, there happened to be water all around this nether dungeon, and with that cleared up, I fought the tyrant dragon, and this boss was even easier since it couldn't get to me. The mobs inside of the boss room actually ended up doing even more damage to me. However, I did get a cool dragon soulstone, which I activated immediately. Once this place was cleared out, I warped back home, and I was able to make more spectral silt. Then I almost had enough to make a bunch of battle burritos, but more importantly than that, I put a bunch of enchants on the nunchucks. That cost 82 levels, and I was still lacking the piercing capabilities enchant. Day 161 to day 162, I was getting close to 0.9 quality wine, so while more were brewing, I started going around collecting maca meat. I also grabbed a bunch of aspen meat as well. Then I needed the bebekos too, but as I was looking for those, I found a mega battle tower. This is when I started lagging again. I decided to attack this tower from the top and took out the evokers first. Then I jumped down and wiped out the tower golem. With that guy gone, I unlocked the 4 chests in that room and grabbed whatever was good. After that, I made my way down the tower, and here I fought some pretty high level champion mobs. A very annoying siren made the job a little harder, but once that siren was taken care of, I was able to steamroll through this tower. This got me up to level 55, but I ended up getting nothing good from the chests in here. Anyway, from there, I moved on and cleared out 2 broken battle towers. Then I put all of my XP away and fought more dragons. During this entire journey, I stocked up on a good amount of maca and aspen meat. For the rest of this journey, I decided to ditch the backpack for the shield of honor and started using shulker boxes instead. One would be for essential items and the other one would be for all the junk. Day 163, I cooked up all of the pinky and bobecco meat I had stored up, and that allowed me to make a few stacks of battle burritos. I stored some good wine in that shulker box and noticed my limiting factor was aspen meat. In the meantime, I produced even more wine and traded for tons of glass. That was all just for bottles though. Before the night ended, I got armored quality on my thorn pendant. For the next few days, I did some research and it turns out that these stealth perks were super overpowered. I didn't know how to use them for a long time still though. To help me with the boss fight, I decided to start advancing those. I then hopped on my rock and picked up a bunch of aspen meat to make even more battle burritos. Once that was done, I found a 4 tower and this place was perfect to level up the stealth skills. I broke my way into the first floor and started looting the chest in the library. Now this chest had a piercing capabilities book which was huge. There was also advanced sharpness as well. Since I didn't need any more emeralds, I wanted to clear out as many spawners as possible. By just fighting these mobs regularly, I got up to level 35 and put all of that into the stealth tree. I picked up a vampirism book, took out a blighted mob, and put even more levels into stealth. I then ran up to the end crystal room and blew it up, and from there I just started working my way back down, taking out all the mobs and spawners below. My stealth was up to level 6 now. I didn't know where this athletic skill was, so I really couldn't increase my sneak speed just yet. Anyway, by the time the 4 tower was cleared, I had level 7 stealth and level 3 stealth damage. From there, I quickly ran through another battle tower and used even more levels on those previously mentioned skills. After that, I leveled up a librarian, took out a dragon, and found a vampirism 1 trader. As the morning rolled around, I was in another village structure and picked up all of the good books on the highest floor of this place. Since I still really needed levels, I decided to clear out another 4 tower, and this place had some more great books. I got up to level 40 on the 2nd floor and maxed out the main stealth perk, which made me even harder to detect. With that done, I broke the crystal up top and then the spawners. After that, I worked my way down and moved on to the other towers. There was an Unbreaking 3 tome in one of the chests, and once I took out a blighted mob, I got my stealth damage to level 4 as well. This place had a potion ring of diamond skin, which I decided to equip for now. My inventory and a shulker box was full, so I decided to move on from this structure. That night, I found a librarian who sold strength and vitality 3, so I would now be able to upgrade my chest plate some more. I picked up a few of those books and then came home to combine it all. After a little bit of combining, I put that on my chest plate. Turns out the cross necklace would be much better for bosses, so I stuck with that. And then to max out my nunchucks, I would need 136 levels. Day 168 to day 169, once again, I did some research and learned that resistance 2 is better than diamond skin, so I swapped some rings. Then I went to the nether to grab a bunch of soul sand. Once that was done, I went to the desert to find some flat spaces. Along the way, I took out a dragon and leveled up some librarians. Once that was done, I summoned a wither and took it out very easily. Since it was one of those champion mobs, I got an enchanted book as well as a nether star. I summoned the next wither a little bit further away and was able to wipe this guy out as well. With that done, I explored a village nearby, and as I took out the dragon in here, a Lycanite's mob event started. This one was pretty hard since some of these nether mobs actually did a good amount of damage. I ran away from the village until the spawning stopped, and once that was done, I was able to clear out most of the mobs. The library in this village had some great books which I snatched up. The next morning, I discovered a 4 tower and took out a dragon and leveled up some more librarians. There also happened to be a battle tower right next to this one village, so I teleported the golem away and I picked up all of the good loot. With that done, I took out the golem after. For the rest of the night, I actually found these 2 librarians inside of a camp and just started leveling them up, but their traits happened to be garbage. From all of that though, I did manage to get like 2 advanced protection 3 books from some of those structures. I made sure to combine those 2 to set up for a proper helmet. Day 170, this was the final few steps before I challenged the first boss. I used up a lot of good books to make a proper silver helmet. I then swapped the Ankh shield on my offhand and went over to summon a boss Cacodemon. I had to use a nether star for the soul key. Once this boss was summoned, I took it out pretty easily and picked up the demon soul stone. With that soul stone and the ender biotite, I made a demonic soul cube. After that, I had to craft another soul key, and then I reforged the helmet and then put the teddy bear on just in case. All of the blocks needed for the boss were in the shulker box, but I noticed I needed a bunch more obsidian. So for that, I flew over over to the nearest mega battle tower and grabbed a stack of them. With all that done, I flew over to the top of the nether and cleared out a large area to place the altar. I placed all the blocks down necessary to summon Rahovart and then ate my battle burrito. Once I got those effects, I drank some wine to extend the time. I swapped to ender pearls as well and summoned Rahovart. Now my first strategy was to get to a far corner and start spamming my bow. This was working at first, but I ended up not being far enough since the main attack in phase 1 hit me. It surprisingly didn't do a lot of damage. I managed to dodge the second attack and realized I might have been way too strong for this fight since I was able to do tons of damage to Rahovart with my nunchucks. I teleported after I noticed Rahovart stacking up these fireballs since I didn't want to get caught in the phase 2 main attack. This time I just had to evade its move, and once the area cleared, I focused my melee attack on Rahovart and actually managed to take the boss out. Once that was done, I had to clear out the rest of the mobs. Then with the area cleared, I picked up all the loot to drop, the most important being these demonic hearts. I also got a lot of levels, and as soon as I got back home, I used some of these soul stones and wanted to keep the rest just in case I wanted to challenge Rahovart later. Even though the wine didn't work too well for this boss, it would still be necessary for the lost cities, so I kept producing some more. I put everything away and then made a waystone with one of the nether stars that were dropped. This one went right inside of my house. I was an idiot and named it a similar name as another waystone, but for some reason it just wouldn't change. Anyway, I spent 41 levels to max out sneak damage and only focused on wine for the rest of the day. I put the new high quality ones in my shulker box. I also made 2 soul keys and placed the altar down for a crimson epion. Once I took that guy out, I had aberration soulstone. Day 173, I had to make my way back towards the end portal and hop in. I needed to collect a bunch of end stones. This was still pretty dangerous, but I managed to pick up the ender dragon egg while I was here as well and then jump back through the portal. With all that, I could make some aberrant stone, and that allowed me to make an aberrant soul cube. To really prepare for the next boss, I made a waystone and even more warp scrolls. I also hopped back into the end portal and found a safe area to place the waystone down in the end. Then I used that waystone to come back home for now. The next day, I found one random little end island and started setting up the altar on it. All the boss altars are the same, but this one was very scary because it was right next to the void. I used my rock to set it all up and then hopped down before using the key. This is when I ate a battle burrito and drank the wine to extend the effects. I used the key on the altar and summoned Asmodeus. Now this boss ruined my last hardcore RLCraft run, so I know just how dangerous it could be. I started off by staying behind one of the pillars and did some damage with my bow, but this absolute beast got very close to me, so I swapped to my nunchucks. That did some serious damage and it was already down like 25% of its health. After hiding behind another pillar and firing some shots, I got this guy down to phase 2. But now some of the random mobs around the arena were doing a lot of damage to me. Once again, I buffed up and went back to attack the boss. This time when the health got low enough, it summoned other mobs who kept itself invulnerable. I had to get rid of those little minions first, but after that I managed to do some really good damage to Asmodeus. I got the boss to almost phase 3, but had to get rid of more minions really quickly. This time I focused my attack and that got Asmodeus all the way down to phase 3 and eventually all the way down too. With the second boss done, I got rid of the extra mobs that were around the area and went to pick up the loot. In total, I got 80 plus levels and tons of these Lycanite items. The most important obviously being these corrupted skulls. With that done, I came right back home, and from here on, everything is uncharted territory for me. I had never gotten this far in RLCraft before. For the rest of the day, I focused on the wine and filled up all the XP tomes I had. With the leftover levels, I put versatility on a pickaxe. Then I went out to explore and cleared out a little battle tower. Day 175 to day 176, so from here I really needed just like one good silver armor piece for the lost cities, so I would be spending a lot of time just looking for books. That meant these 4 tower structures were pretty important since they always managed to have some good enchants. I speedran my way through and picked up some good books on the first floor. I also managed to get a ton of emeralds as well, and on the second floor, of course, there were even more books. One of these happened to be an Advanced Protection 3 enchant. Plus, I found an iron chest plate which also had Advanced Protection 3 on it. So with all that done, I cleared out the whole structure, which had some great loot and got me up to level 65. In the morning, I used a waystone to come home, and here I disenchanted that iron chestplate and combined the 2 advanced protection books together. Since that was done, I grabbed basically every other book that I had that would be good on a set of boots. With all that, I finally started enchanting silver boots. I started with advanced protection, then feather falling, and after that I just put in the rest. Once again, it wasn't fully maxed, but it was really close. Day 177 to day 178, just so I would get the cure effect, I decided to use the silver leggings anyway, but just with regular protection. It should be fine since the rest of the set was pretty solid. Turns out I not only got the cure effect, but I managed to get 50% movement speed as well. I got the whole set up to master as well, and started raiding these desert structures for crafting runes. I was actually worried that the silver armor would have too low durability for the Amalgalich fight. I ran through a few desert structures, took out a few dragons, and even cleared out a battle tower as well. That in turn got me some really good items, and I eventually ended up on a pirate ship. This place ended up having some skulls, and after that I jumped in the water, which surprised me since underwater strider made me go really fast. As the day was getting dark, I picked up more crafting rooms from a desert temple, and then recalled home. I used the duplicate runes to make a rune reader and turned it to the advanced version as well. Also, my wildberry wine was finally getting to good quality. I placed the advanced rune reader down and saw that I had a golem chestplate and boots. I finally got undying on my cross necklace as well. The next day, since I was still worried about the durability, I wanted the rest of the golem armor. I teleported to a desert far away and started to explore from there. There was another battle tower here, and past that I fought a dragon who was in front of a large pyramid. In this place I managed to get a bunch of good stuff. Right behind that structure I found a mimic on a dragon's nest. Now once again I wanted the pharaoh claw or the antidote vessel, but I got something I already had. Anyway, from there I explored some more desert structures and went down to an underground battle tower. Once I came home I checked on all the runes that I had and finally got the helmet and leggings as well. Day 180 to day 181 I moved the rune reader down to the main chest and started gathering the items needed for the helmet to start. This one took a little bit of crafting and I actually ended up having most of the items already. With the helmet done, I needed to get more ink sacks and then make a written book. Then I cooked up some netherrack to make stairs, and with all that done, the chestplate was ready as well. I got the leggings in the morning, which were very easy to craft, and the boots happened to be the hardest. I had to travel to the end dimension, but before that though, I set up the rest of the crafting recipe. After that, I quickly ran into the end and stored a chorus flower. The rabbit meat was also super annoying, but I eventually got her in the desert and now had a set of golem armor, just in case. I only had to worry about like not breaking my silver armor. Before the night ended, I actually decided to buy a bunch of strengthened vitality books and then set them up next to the golem armor. Day 182 to day 183, I used and had to make tons more glowing ingots since I was trying to reforge this shield of honor. At this point, what I needed most were silver ingots, so I hopped down into a mine that I made while I was fighting the wither. I was only looking for silver ore, and after digging lower and lower, I found a few, which was a good start. I fought a monster box down here and came up to cook the haul that I had collected. From there, I also realized that a potion of flight is necessary for the lost cities, especially with silver armor. Before going out to look for that though, I collected some glowstone in the nether and got sidetracked by some structures. I found these large city-like structures and made my way inside. This place was jam-packed with tons of Lycanites mobs. As I entered one of these basements, I fought these mobs who dropped wither skeleton heads. Oh, and I also picked up syntheticite lanterns in here. To the left and right of this one structure were also these little libraries, which actually had some really great loot as well. One blighted skeleton got me a bunch of levels, and I ran around just clearing out most of the spawners. I ended up with tons of books, more golden apples, and eventually had almost like 30 wither skeleton skulls. Plus, the enchanted books on the second floors of these libraries were awesome. I used an unbreaking tome on my helmet. After forever, I figured out where the athletics perks were, so I leveled those up and started increasing my sneak speed as well. From there, I got back up to level 30 and found myself inside one of those nether doom-like dungeons. Once again, I really needed that one wither spawner since you could use nether stars to reforge any items. When I got up to level 40, I put all those levels into sneak speed. Sadly, I didn't get any withers to spawn, but I did get some really good loot. I even managed to level up sneak speed once again. I called it quits when I got back up to level 41. Day 184 to day 186, at this point my sneak speed was up to level 7 and I used tons of silver ingots to make even more glowing ingots. I also started getting really close to 0.9 quality wine and I actually ended up with undying on the shield of honor, which was really important. Later that day I got undying on the broken heart as well, and then finalized it with getting undying on the Ankh shield after that. Once again, it was this teddy bear which I could not reforge for some reason. I eventually figured out that it was the glowing ingot, and obviously that did the job. Using a bunch of those, my baubles were basically all maxed out. As soon as morning hit, I teleported around looking for flower forest biomes. I needed very specific pixie dusts for flying potions. I flew around this tiny little patch and eventually found a pixie, but for some reason, even with advanced looting, I got no dust from the first one. I cleared some trees and then turned hitboxes on, but it still took me until the night to get more pixie dust. Just past this place was a much bigger flower wildflower forest, and I spent the whole night there. I took out tons of mobs, and in the morning when I came home, I had 4 pixie dusts. With that and these bone mushroom spurs, I started brewing potions of flight. Since that was working, I set up the portal to the lost cities using a lot of the wither skeleton heads that I had collected. The only thing I really needed now was higher quality wildberry wine, so I upped the wine production and teleported around grabbing more grapes. I put more brewing barrels down as well, and that basically doubled the production. Day 187 to day 188, I started using up all my XP tomes, and with those levels, I increased my sprint speed and athletics. Any spare levels I had, I put back into those tomes. Once that was done, I crafted shadow stones, and then went to check out this end Lycanites dungeon to see if I could get the soul stone I needed. The one I needed was actually the undead soul stone. I broke into the top of the Lycanites dungeon and started ripping and tearing through this place. I fought the Arachnotron right away, who happened to be the first boss. This guy dropped an aberration soul stone. With the cure effect, I wasn't really getting instability, which made life much easier against these mobs. Plus, now that I had increased my sprint speed, I was blazing through the rooms. I got up to level 46 and still hadn't found another boss yet. However, I did level up my sprint speed some more. I wish I did this like 200 days ago, since this made everything a lot easier. In that direction, I ended up finding no bosses, so I hopped on my mount and broke into the dungeon from another angle. Here I fought another boss called Experiment 69R and used the 2 soul stones that had been in my inventory. From there, I picked up more baubles and enchanted books, then got my sprint speed up to level 9. Before coming home though, I actually managed to max the skill out. Since I didn't have the undead soul stone, I had to make an altar for the lunar grue. This one also needed a soul key, and once I took the boss out, I could craft the undead soul cube. I had all my wine ready and reforged this lucky clover, which I swapped a teddy bear for. Then as a last resort, I made some invisibility potions in case I ever got stuck. Day 189 to 191, so it was finally time to get into the lost cities. I had just enough high quality wines. I ate an enchanted golden apple, then a battle burrito. With those buffs, I drank a wildberry wine to level them up, and then finally started drinking the regular wine. I made a little mistake by not drinking the potion of wings right away, but it ended up working out anyway. With all those buffs, I hopped into the lost cities. My goal was to grab as many chests as possible, and also to try and stay indoors if I could. I immediately fought parasites, but I was holding strong. As long as my flight didn't run out, things would be fine. The chests in here were really good, and my nunchucks also managed to wipe out these mobs very quickly. These assimilated high-level mobs were very scary though, like this ender dragon, who I actually managed to take out with my bow. Those mobs are very annoying since they always follow you around and they can see you from anywhere. On the bright side, a majority of my armor was mostly fine, and I actually picked up my first ring, which happened to be a fairy ring. I placed my shulker box down, grabbed even more wine, and then ran out of the first batch that I had. From there, I fought my first bomber parasite. My actual main goal here was to get a dragon ring, which happened to be one of the rarest. For some reason, I also started getting hypothermia here, which was very annoying. I skipped out on tons of other loot since I really wanted those rings, so I only glanced into most of the chests. Even though I was relatively safe the whole time, this journey was still super scary. I knew that if a few mobs grouped up on me, my armor would be shredded. For some even better news, I got a Titan ring, which I didn't know the rarity of. And once that was done, I grabbed even more wine and took out another ender dragon, and also took out a blighted mob as well. I also realized that I basically had to be flying the entire time, otherwise a bunch of mobs would start teleporting to me. At this point, I had drank a good amount of wine and got up to level 58. From there, I decided to call it quits with a 2-ring haul. I put those rings away since they weren't the ones that I needed, and then used an unbreaking tome on my nunchucks. I actually put most of those levels into skills as well. I then spent the entire next day stocking up on wine, which was completely worth it since they were all great quality now. Day 192 to day 194, I buffed up fully once more and made sure to also grab a good amount of wine. I also drank a cold resistance potion just in case and felt ready to take the lost cities on again. This time I went in the other direction and started looting all the chests again. I picked up mana crystals and another Titan ring. I fought even more blighted mobs and finally got a new ring, and this one was the Ring of the Phalus. As I moved on, I actually got that ring again, and this trip really wasn't that good. The only thing valuable was finding a flat area to fight Amalgalich on. So I set a waystone down and decided to come home. At this point, I already made up my mind to where I was gonna fight the boss, so I started brewing even more really good quality wine. Since I had so many wither skeleton heads, I wanted to collect a good amount of nether stars as well. To do that, I went pretty far away and dug all the way till bedrock. Here I placed tons of soul sand down back to back and started summoning these withers one by one. In total, there were like 5 of them here, but as I just held left click, I took them all out without even breaking a sweat. That gave me a good amount of nether stars. Before these days ended, I found a good strategy to hopefully save my armor, and that was to just make these mending potions. I compiled these days since I actually did a lot. First, I drank all the potions I had and ate a battle burrito. Once I buffed up on spawn wines, I built up the altar a little bit away from the waystone I had set down in the lost cities. I made sure to be on the ground while doing this. Once I activated the altar, there was no turning back. With my inventory ready, I was finally able to start the fight against Amalgalich. But it turns out that I actually found a way to cheese the boss. All I had to do was hold sneak and the parasites couldn't see me, which actually made this fight so much easier. Since I invested so many levels into sneak damage and sneak speed, I was moving just fine. And also Amalgalich couldn't see me well either, so this thing was super easy. Using my bow, I did tons of damage and only had to worry about one major move, which was Amalgalich dragging you in. I nullified that move by using ender pearls, and honestly, sneaking made this fight so easy. I only took damage from my own ender pearls. Once the boss was gone, by me just firing tons of arrows non-stop, I had to clear out an assimilated ender dragon and then picked up all the loot. Here I think I got the sin pendant and tons of level, plus a bunch of random lycanite blocks. And here's where most of the days went though. I ended up spending absolutely forever going through the lost cities looking for the dragon ring. I was basically just exploring every single building until I ran out of wine, and since I had tons of wine, I was there for a really good amount. It ended up being really clutch, and as all of my effects started running out, I stopped on top of a building, and luckily this chest had the dragon ring. Getting down was one of the scariest things ever. I took tons of damage. I felt like I was gonna die, but luckily running into the water saved my life. With that done, I was able to warp home and then create a separate chest for all the loot I had. Then I went to see what I could do with this dragon ring. I didn't know what this fruit thing was. I eventually found out that that's how you make the transformation permanent, but I just put the ring on, and this thing gives you 25% more health and attack damage and 50% more armor toughness as well. Plus it gives you sick wings. The only thing negative was the mana every time you flew, but still it was super worth it. I wish I had gotten it before the final boss. I maxed out my mana by eating some crystals, and at this point I'd basically completed RLCraft. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, and in the comments let me know what other challenges I should do.